Hilarion Oliver, who is from Paolo, Leyte, and joining us from Riyadh in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Hey everyone! Thank you, Lestrado. Thank you, Paolo, for having me here today.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence. As always, Hilarion, we have our very own Smile Like Nina, Nina Carpio, who's joining us from Dubai.
Hi everybody. Thanks for having me, Illustrado, and let's have some fun today.
Let's have some fun. And our Filipina Abu Dhabi gang representative, we have Joan Tuaño.
Masah al khair from Abu Dhabi. And
Masah al Nur.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on the show today. Joanne, you've been to a lot of places, so we're waiting to hear all of your stories.
Can't wait to share.
We have another fellow Dubai kid, Bettina Micu.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining the show. And we also have our very own Paul Aggarao, who is part of the Mala gang, and he is a videographer and content creator and shawarma lover. Paul, you there?
Hi guys, thank you for having me, Lestrado. Let's
Mala gang,
talk some
yeah.
Food. Yeah, Mala gang.
And for those of you who don't know what the Mala gang is, we're going to be explaining to you very soon. Joining us all the way from Maryland, we have Mariah Celts, who is a fil-am, a college friend of mine, and a very, very talented singer. And you can almost bet that she's a closeted dancer. We just have to edge that out to her. Mariah, you have to come to our parties and dance with us next time you come back to Dubai once this whole situation blows over, of course, right?
Yes, I will.
Awesome. Buongiorno to our fellow Filipina Italian Dubai kid who is also a regular contributor for this week, Chantal. Hey.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We're looking to talk about growing up Filipino, and because all of you here seem to love food, we're gonna be talking ulam across the world as well. So better watch out for that. So get your appetite ready. I understand that y'all are hungry as well. So tiis muna, okay? And joining us from the USA, representing the Subtle Filipino Traits Facebook group and leadership team, we have Louella, Cabalona, and Christine Dixon. Say hello.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Hi, everyone watching. Thanks for having us, Paolo, and the gang. Looking forward to talk to you guys.
Awesome. So this is probably the first ever discussion that we have done of its kind. And I've had a hard time trying to write down questions to ask y'all, not gonna lie. So I'm gonna start this, and this may be a very, very important question. So I'd like to ask everybody for their honest answers, okay?
Okay.
If you were a Filipino ulam, what would you be?
Filipino ulam.
Sinigang. Easily.
Sinigang.
Adobo. I will never think twice about it. Adobo, definitely.
So we do know that adobo is actually the most common answer. But Jodilly, I want to ask you, rather than adobo, why do you choose to represent the sinigang?
Sinigang talaga.
Sinigang
I
na
don't know.
talaga.
It's been my favorite ever since I was young. And then that's the only Filipino dish I think I've mastered because it's my favorite. So if you're gonna ask me, which ulam, definitely sinigang.
Definitely sinigang. Any specific variety?
Sinigang na baboy or
Yeah.
baka.
That's it.
Yes.
Right there. Ayan na.
Hindi maganda yun.
Before I move on to interrogate the others about their ulam preference, I want to ask you, when you say you've mastered sinigang, do you mean master it with the raw ingredients, or are we talking about that special Mamacita spice blend that we're all familiar with?
Siguro, probably I've mastered the ano ba to, the sinigang mix, but not really that master with the raw ingredients. But I can cook with the raw ingredients. Syempre, I'm the master of the sinigang mix, no?
Ay,
Easy.
syempre naman.
Pag hindi mo pa na-master yun, ewan ko na lang, Diyos ko.
I'm gonna love.
I was saying,
All right.
I think a
Now,
lot of people mastered eating it.
I mean, yeah, we're Filipino. I think if anything, I think the one positive stereotype that I'm proud of owning up to is really just enjoying food, because we Filipinos love to eat. We love to eat together. You know,
True.
we love boodle fights and we love all of these sorts of things. Now, who here represents the adobo demographic?
Well, it depends. Like you said, who would you be if you're ulam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's different from asking what you love. Because if I was at ulam, it would be lechon paksiw.
Lechon paksiw. Please explain.
Well, lechon paksiw is made with the leftovers, right? So I literally would wait till the end of the party so that we could get the ulam. Actually, I tell people to leave meat on the lechon so we can have like meat in the paksiw. But for me, I think, it's about patience in life and delayed gratification. So that's why I'm lechon paksiw.
Delayed gratification. Okay, I'll give my answer here. And I did mention this in our secret group chat, but I don't think everyone else knows. If I was an ulam, I would be a burger from Burger Machine. I have many
Burger
layers. Burger Machine
Yes.
specifically. I have many layers of paper around me. You have to unveil them one by one. And once you get to the inside, you're just going to have to take what you paid for. Take it or leave it. Hate it or love it. I'm unapologetically myself, So, Hilarion, you mentioned adobo as well. Why?
I mentioned adobo. It's not because it's popular. It's actually because my mom used to do it. So every time I eat it, every time I smell adobo, it reminds especially me as an OFW working abroad. So every time I smell adobo, I just smell home. That's why I love it.
Yun,
There's a background story about the adobo thing,
Very nice. Okay, so now that I think some of us are warmed up here, and I hope that the rest of you are warmed up as well, we're gonna get to the main discussion. All right.
Oh.
So I wanna ask those of you who are not Dubai kids just yet. Okay, we'll get to the Dubai kids in a minute. I wanna ask you, Mariah, what is life like where you're from? How do you feel living there? Because I know that you moved to Maryland, and you've been going back and forth between Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is your life like there right now, as a Pinay specifically, or as a Filipina American rather?
So when I moved here in February, I had to get a part-time job to start supporting myself because we took a financial hit. But I realized that like here in the USA, it's like a much more real world. Like in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, everything is so easy. Like you can do everything through apps, and like here people are more like working class, so you can see people who are like in their 80s or 90s with like their full white head of hair working here. But in UAE you see like the younger like pretty Filipinas and Filipinos in like makeup stores, and like the cashiers in Carrefour, they pick and choose who can stay in the UAE to work. Like you can't get a UAE visa when you're like over 60, I think.
Yeah.
But here I learned that like it's not that superficial here, and you do things the hard way. And actually I started working at a store here, and all the Hispanic people start talking to me in Spanish. They would just go off, and I'm just like I don't speak Spanish, sorry. And they
I
just
can totally relate to you on the Spanish part, honestly, because I oftentimes get confused as a Spanish person or a Mexican in some cases as well. So it's a
Exactly.
little bit of everything. And in a
Yeah.
place like the USA, you get a little bit of everything from life. So I think it's great that you're getting a shot out there. Now, I want to redirect this question, and I'm going to redirect this question to Louella and Christine, who represent subtle Filipino traits. You guys have been in America for quite a while now. So, how does it feel to be a Filipina over there?
Well, Luella and I have different experiences because my father was actually a white American, and
Okay.
I mostly grew up here, whereas Luella actually moved here as an adult. So I actually I grew up in a very white suburban neighborhood. Most of my classmates were white. I had no Filipino classmates until I think I was in 6th grade. So for me, it was very strange because no one knew what the Philippines was. Like, this was the late 90s, and I'm in a white school, and I looked very Chinese as a kid. So they'd always ask me if I was Chinese. Now, it was a Catholic school, so I'd say, no, I'm Filipino. I'm from the Philippines. And they go, Philistine? Isn't that from the Bible? Aren't they the bad guys? So growing up, it was very strange because I was constantly having to explain myself and being mixed. People couldn't really place me. Like, no one could tell where I was from. Sometimes they'd speak to me in Spanish. Sometimes they'd speak to me in Arabic. So it was very interesting from that perspective. And it took me a while. Like, I was always raised with a very strong sense of Pinoy pride, but it took a while to like find the Filipino community around me and like really get my footing there.
And I think it's actually high time that we as Filipinos actually begin to start being more loud and proud about ourselves, because despite us having been around the world for quite a while, I think there's still only in recent years have we really seen a proper celebration of Filipino culture outside. The rest of the time, we've been just kind of, we've been getting by, we've been here, we've been doing our work, but now we're beyond work. It's time we play hard as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we assimilate. We're good at fitting in and not making waves and not drawing attention to ourselves. And now that's starting to change, and it's great. Like, we're carving out a diaspora identity for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
And battling...
I
please
just
go ahead.
wanted to add, like, in my experience,
go ahead.
having lived in the Philippines and then moved over here, I think I got a better appreciation of our Filipino heritage and our identity as Filipinos when I moved. Because living in the Philippines, you don't really think about it, and then you imbibe whatever culture is there. And as we all know, right, it's very US centric. It's very Spanish centric. Like, it's the influences of other countries that is telling us what is good and what is important for us. But when you go out of your country and you're now suddenly a minority, you have this pride that gets instilled that says, wait, why am I wanting to be white? Why am I wanting to be like the supermodel when I actually like my color? I like my food. I like my own heritage. So I don't have to imbibe what's sort of foreign to us as better. I think that's me moving here.
I
Like,
see.
half my life I spent there, and then half my life I'm spending here. It's a good crossroads of understanding why we need, not just why we need, but that it instills a pride in us in being Filipinos by being away.
Some very, very valid points there. So I want to ask a question to our audience that's actually watching the live stream right now. Alam mo na, Filipinos are all over the world, and we all have different stories and experiences to share. So if you're watching this right now and you'd love to share something, please do. I want to ask you guys specifically, do you feel Filipino where you are? Do you have any sort of internal battle between yourself, choosing to identify as one or something else? Would love to hear from you in the comments. And now I also want to redirect this question to our Dubai kids. So I'm gonna be calling out Paul, Bettina, Nina, Chantal, and all of our other Dubai babies or Dubai kids for this one. Now, we have a really big Filipino community over here. So, have you ever had a sort of, did you ever have a time where you wondered whether you fit in as a Filipino or not? Spilling a little bit of tea here, of course.
I think I definitely have had that, in that when I was living in Dubai, I was part of, in various international schools, I was part of like the Filipino community, the Filipino kids. We perform at International Day. So it's because I felt very, very Filipino. But when I moved to the Philippines briefly, when I was in my late teens, I suddenly felt like what I thought I was as a Filipino was very, very different to what being Filipino meant in the actual Philippines. So I think it's been a weird balance where I think Louella brought this up earlier, where Filipinos abroad have a very different concept of what like Filipino pride and being Filipino meant. So I think I've struggled with that quite a bit, especially over the last 5 years since I like moved there and moved back.
I see. What about the rest of you, Dubai or Joan, including you, Abu Dhabi kids who have been here for so long? Because I know that each of you has an amazing story to tell. So, would love to hear from you on that.
Yeah, from Abu Dhabi, I grew up studying in a very international school, which was mostly Arabic classmates. So I had kind of like a identity crisis when I was, I think, 13. And I wanted to be with fellow kababayans. I wanted to move to a Filipino school here, but my mom wanted me to go to like a Catholic, you know how the schools are in Philippines, very strict, run by nuns. So she wanted me to go back to that kind of school because my mom is from St. Paul's. So I ended up having a 1 year going back to Quezon City. I went to Miriam College, and hoping to be one of them, or one of what you mentioned, Chantal, being one of them. And then I realized I'm not like them either. So I was so confused because I was like, wait, who am I, or what am I really? And then that's when I found out about this term TCK, or third culture kids, and there's TC, third culture adults as well. So basically you make your own combo of your mother and father's culture and where you grew up or where you're currently living or working. So it's like your own unique combo. Like no one would ever have the same culture anymore, which is crazy because now you're thinking like, who is everyone now? It's like everyone has their own concoction of culture, which is really cool.
I think it's a totally relatable situation to be in. Me, myself, I've grown up going to international schools, and I've had a hard time also fitting in because, I used to be socially awkward as a kid, but also I feel that being Filipino was a thing that actually separated me from really integrating into the crowd, because there were always these different circles of different nationalities, but the Filipinos, we were always just kind of in the corner because there were so few of us in the first place. But now I actually want to redirect this question to someone who really, really is loud and proud about promoting Filipina beauty in everything that she does. So Nina, on to you. I would like to know your opinion on being Filipina. How proud are you of it?
I'm super duper proud. The coolest thing about growing up here in Dubai is that we are surrounded with different nationalities, right? But I think my parents still instill in me that culture, that Filipino culture, that we should love where we come from. And I think back in the 90s in Dubai, there are not a lot of Filipinos here yet. So we are kind of close-knit, like everybody knows everybody. Like what you said, Paolo, right? Like, I know your mom, like Paul, I know Paul. Paul is actually my brother-in-law now, if you guys don't know. So I think I didn't really have, for me, I didn't have a hard time I didn't have that feeling that I was isolated as a Filipino, that I was discriminated as a Filipino when I was growing up in school. So that's why probably I have a different perspective. But I saw what's happening in other countries, and like in the Philippines, everybody's using the whitening products because they want to like fit into the norm. I mean, not norm, but what people see as superior. So I thought maybe I have to change that mindset and really focus on Filipino beauty. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now.
So I want to ask you also, is being Filipina an advantage to you wherever you go? Or are there some certain disadvantages that also come along with the connotation, like stereotypes for that matter, negative and positive?
Yeah, of course, there's still, there are stereotypes here in Dubai. Like, people still think that if you're a Filipina, you're like a maid. That's the work for you, or you're just gonna be a secretary, you're just gonna be a PA. So there's still that stereotype. So it's up to us to break those stereotypes. So that's why we have to speak out, stand up, and really go out there and show how excellent we are with everything that we do.
Love every little bit of it. And now someone who has been fighting her way to represent on the international stage, Miss Jodilly Pendre. You're a Filipino model, and you've competed on a lot of us, know you from Asia's Next Top Model. I myself grew up watching you. I'm so amazed we even have you here right now and everything. So when it comes to fighting and representing yourself as a Filipina model, or really just as someone that is unapologetically herself, what's your stance on that? Is there any sort of advice that you can also give to the people who are watching?
Right. Hirap ng tanong ah. Miss Universe question.
Miss Universe question,
I
yes.
was, before I joined Asia's Next Top Model, I'm gonna tell you a story first so that everyone can relate. So before I joined Asia's Next Top Model, I was never discriminated because I'm a Filipina. Obviously, because I'm in the Philippines. So when I joined the competition, right, no discrimination at all. Syempre, because everyone came. Like all of us came from different countries, so the cultural differences, appearance, and stuff like that. But then after Asia's Next Top Model, when I started my international modeling career, that's the time that I felt discrimination because I went to say Singapore, Indonesia is fine, but in Singapore they're asking me that Filipinos are models pala. Like that's the question. And especially when I was in Italy, they asked me, "Oh, I didn't know there's a Filipino model. Oh, we thought Filipinos are just, maids." And I'm like, "So what so what? It's still like what? It's like what's wrong with being a helper, Like what's
Very
wrong
true.
with
Very true.
what's wrong? Like currently I'm a barista, part-time barista. People are telling me here, why am I a barista? And I'm like, why not? I like making coffee. I love coffee. At the same time, I model. What's wrong with that? They've got, like, even Filipinos, um, they've got this idea that when you reach, say for example me, when I reach Asia's Next Top Model, you can't go back down. You get what I mean? Just because I started working as a barista doesn't mean I just level myself self down. So going back to the discrimination, I extremely felt discriminated in Italy because of the thought of Filipinas being maid or helpers. But then at the same time, because I was raised not feeling any discrimination, and I think my attitude had helped me a lot by having so much self-confidence in myself for some reason. I was like, I don't really care. I'm just gonna go for it, If I've got rejected so many times just because I'm a philo,
I
like
see.
internationally. Yeah, like, and also because of my skin color. They're like, you have to be white, you have to dye your hair blonde. You have to do this, do that. There's like so many uh requirements when you're a philo, or generally when you're Asian, especially when you're a philo. Yeah. So
Mhm.
like me, I'm very goal orientated. So I'm like, as long as I know what I'm doing is right, I'm just gonna go for it. Whatever they say about me, whatever they say about philos. Of course, if they say something bad about philos, I'm gonna answer that. Because I'm like, you have no right to tell the stuff, like bad stuff about my own country, especially my people. You get what I mean? Like, I hate it. I don't want,
Definitely.
because I am
And
not gonna be like that. And
definitely,
never will be. So
we should
especially like,
unapologetically be ourselves at the end of the
yeah, and like
day.
Filipinos are so known to being really kind hearted, very helpful and stuff like that. And I don't know where they get those bad traits about Philos. And now living in Australia, I've been here for only a couple of years. So 2 years pa lang. But then yeah, so it's hard to break into modeling because I get comments like, you're too dark, you have to be a little bit whiter, you're too this and that, like we can't really
Yeah,
put
it's
you
too
as an
much.
Asian. And I'm like, I am
Mhm.
Asian.
Yeah, and I
So
think a lot of these things actually come from a fake sense of pride in which we would rather hide behind the guise of ourselves, and we would rather than talk about our achievements, we would rather talk about what we are, because it seems that for a lot of people outside of outside of our circles, all over the world, actions still do not speak louder than words. So we really need to get ourselves into action for that. And speaking of pride, speaking of action, I want to ask Hilarion. Hilarion, you're no stranger to stereotyping either. So
Yes.
how do
Hey.
you come back? How do you come back at those who are stereotyping with you?
Well,
At you
actually,
rather.
yeah. I mean, I really don't like face a lot of stereotyping in a way that being a Filipino, because most of the time they think that I am like a Korean guy. But with living in Saudi for more than 13 years, I feel like I grew up here. I notice a lot of stuff here. I notice how people are interacting. So in Saudi Arabia, the culture is totally different. So our expectation when we hear about Saudi Arabia is totally different. Everybody knows about that. So when I started living here, really the people here are very respectable. Of course, this is not a perfect place. Each country has its negative stuff, but Saudi Arabia, they are very respectful. They really respect the Filipinos here, and the community here in Saudi Arabia among Filipinos with our kababayans here, really they are. I must say they are exceptional. I lived in Dubai. I've been to UK. I've been to Turkey. I've been to China. I've been to Philippines, of course. But the Filipino here are really solid. We really help each other, and stereotyping really is how to deal with that. To be honest, is to carry yourself well. So here in Saudi Arabia, really, especially the locals, they admire Filipinos for being hardworking, very professional, regardless if you are a housemaid or regardless if you are working in an office, you're a manager, they really respect us. And this is really something that I'm really thankful. And I never seen this compared to any country that I visited before.
I love it. I love all of it. One thing's for sure is that no matter how much we are being stereotyped against, and no matter how many slurs people will throw at us, at the end of the day, it's like I say, it's our drive, it's our goal to succeed, and that is what's ultimately going to define us on the long run. We've always been about championing the Filipino, and especially in a place like Dubai, to which I will ask Bettina about this. We're in a very competitive industry. So what's it like being a Filipina, a young Filipina, for a matter of fact, who's already a creative lead in an industry like yours, where one thing can happen one day and the next day it's completely gone?
I mean, definitely growing up in Dubai was tough. And, I'm going to be the first one to admit that
it was very hard for me to love being Filipino. Growing up in Dubai, there are a lot of stereotypes, as we've spoken about in the past few minutes, of Filipinos having low-income jobs, or Filipina women in specific working either as nannies or housemaids. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that even speaking about low-income jobs are still important. The trust and the confidence given to Filipino nannies and house helpers speaks a lot about the contribution of Filipinos, not only in the US,
Definitely so.
but also globally. And to simply just dismiss these jobs as if it's low is kind of contradicts the importance of the job itself. So I no longer get offended if people assume I'm a nanny or a house helper. Also, working in a very competitive industry, I feel like a lot of Filipinos, luckily not as often anymore, but Filipinos are very shy and reserved, and we feel very shy to stand out and to speak loudly. And I think, if anything, that's given me more motivation to kind of like shout and be like, I'm Filipino, I can do this. Look at what we're capable
Definitely.
of. And hopefully I can inspire other Filipino creatives as well to, not stand in the background. It's okay to stand out. And it's scary. It's so scary to stand out in such a, creative industry in like Dubai, where, every day there's a new person popping out. But I think it's important to represent, just because looking back now, I wish I had someone like myself or Nina or everyone else on this live to look up to. And so I'm just doing my own little part and trying to, I guess, represent as best as I can.
Very, 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 very insightful answer there from someone that's especially so young. We're not even reached our 30s yet, but to be blessed with the wealth of knowledge from coming from so many different cultures and immersing ourselves in a completely different culture, anybody has the potential to speak up and stand out no matter where they are. And Paul Aggarao, for someone that is loud and proud for a Filipino, you managed to do everything from behind the camera as a videographer. So how do you do it? What's your secret to success?
Oh, that's hard. Yeah. Well, someone mentioned earlier that since we're here in Dubai, it's a multicultural place and a lot of nationalities, a lot of clients. So when I work, it's actually nice to just be behind the scene, just be humble, just let your work speak for yourself. And with that, I actually didn't do any advertising in terms of our company doing video. It's all about word of mouth. So when they know, this Filipino guy can do this video for this price, but the quality is this good, and then word travels. And I think when I ask my clients, different nationalities, about their feedback about our work, it's just the quality of the Filipinos. Wherever you put Filipinos, whether it be videography, photography, nanny or whatever, they say that the quality, the excellence is always top notch, and we speak very good English. We groom ourselves. We don't. We use a lot of perfume, your cologne, so we're very good to work with, and the ambience, the aroma is very good. So we don't smell like shawarma.
Oh, yes. And, all of us here who are in Dubai, we're no strangers to shawarma at all. And just going back to the point that you've made about aroma, I don't know if this is a thing among other Filipinos, but I cannot work without smelling good. I did my hair, I shaved myself, I put my DO and everything that you need to do, even just to sit in front of a camera like this and talk for a certain amount of time. Because our hard work, our diligence, so much of the quality that we have and that we put on the table, it largely comes out for the respect that we also have for ourselves. We take care of ourselves so we can take care of our work. We deliver with ourselves so we deliver the best.
Yep.
Now, in terms of looking back at things in retrospect, we have faced a lot of discriminations from non-Filipino audiences. But what is it like being discriminated against by a fellow Filipino? How different is it from being discriminated by, let's say, a person that's usually from the West? And I want to ask Chantal, and I also want to ask Joan for this, because there's always, like I mentioned before, there's always that sort of not midlife, but there's always this sort of identity crisis that we have to deal with, knowing that you are half, or knowing that you've lived somewhere and you're not used to the environment at all. So what would your take be on that, for that matter? You both lived in the Philippines, so it would be an interesting story to share.
I think, so kind of related to this is the big way I thought people were like lightheartedly discriminating against me within the Filipino community is that I have a terrible accent when I speak Tagalog. Like, it's embarrassing. And as much as mom has tried to teach me and tried to help me with my intonation and inflections and all that, it's never gotten better. So whenever I tried to speak Tagalog in the Philippines, you know, when I was on vacation or when I moved there, I'd always get laughed at, and like people corrected me very like loudly. And I knew it was from a place of, you know, just wanting to teach me better, but it always felt a bit strange. Like I shouldn't be talking because I didn't sound like a, you know, like a Filipino child should. And even when I was growing up in Dubai, I'd tell people, oh yeah, I'm half Filipino. And if they too were Filipinos, they'd like start speaking in rapid fire Tagalog. And when I didn't know how to speak, they'd kind of be like, oh, so like Filipino, but like not really Filipino. So I think it's a weird identity crisis to navigate, as I said, that I'm still trying to navigate, because it's never from a bad place, but it is an awkward one because I didn't know whether to feel offended or just like ashamed most of the time. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me is my accent and the fact that I just cannot speak Tagalog like a Filipino.
It is a very awkward topic na talaga. And, you know, even in keeping with our topic, which is growing up all across the world, you sort of seek a little bit of familiarity within Filipinos, you know, not necessarily judging the type of person, but sometimes if you go out on the street and you're all alone, you see a whole bunch of Filipinos, there's always that little bit of feeling at home already, because you know that you're a Filipino and they're a Filipino. But just like you, I had a lot of problems trying to learn Tagalog because hindi ako fluent. It's as simple as that. English is my first language. And, you know, it's always been a common thing. Like, I go and I tell people that I'm Filipino. They're like, oh, why don't you speak Tagalog? And then this whole identity crisis inside just unfolds and you don't know how to answer. So, Joan, you've also been trying to fit in wherever you've been. You've lived in the Philippines. You've studied in different countries as well. How would your experience sort of relate to this kind of Filipino identity dilemma that many of us TCKs are going through, especially in changing times like this?
Okay, I think it's a very, very good question. But my short kind of solution is kind of owning your own concoction of the cultures you're facing and your Filipino identity. Because, okay, first of all, the Philippines is very big. Okay, so there's so many cultures within the Philippines. So within those cultures, I mean, so there's Ilocano, there's Kapampangan. I mean, I heard people speaking Kapampangan, which is actually where my last name, what's it called, ancestors came from. And I said, is that like even Filipino? Because it sounds like Japanese or Chinese. So I think it's about being proud of being as Filipino as you can. So just how you said, Chantal, the accent, marunong ako mag-Tagalog, but there's always a twang. There's always like this, like, you know, just even the pronunciation or like which part you focus on the word, I always get it wrong. And so, I mean, our team, so I run a butchery in Abu Dhabi, and we are fully Filipino, our team. But I just have learned to say, okay, I probably said that wrong, or like I'll try to do a briefing and I'll try to speak in Tagalog, pero laging may mali, or I just mention it in a wrong intonation, and so I just say sorry, I said it wrong, or or just tell me if I said it wrong and I'll fix it. So just kind of like twisting it in a nice way, to be proud of it anyway. And at least you're trying. At least I'm trying to speak Tagalog, right? And another thing is I also get the feedback that my English is too good. Like they tell me, oh, how come you don't sound Filipino? Or how come you don't look Filipino? You look Peruvian. You look Mexican. Or actually, aren't you from New York? And I'm like, no, I've never lived in New York, but I guess I watch a lot of Netflix. But I mean, it's you have to decide how you can be kind of balanced on being offended / proud.
You need to find the best of both worlds at the end of the day, because at the end, there's no real ideal situation despite everything that we are looking for, despite all the hopes and dreams. You just kind of have to make it work. And one way of making it work is also standing up for your community. So I want to ask my fil-ams for this. I want to start with Louella this time. Louella, what do you do to empower your Filipino community? What is the best way, what is the best thing that a Pinoy can do to contribute directly to their people, essentially, especially being all the way over there?
Well, I think in the past few years, there have been a lot of movement among the Filipino American community across the USA to really trace their roots. And by this, I mean, I think in the past, many decades ago, people wanted to kind of like link to their heritage by, wearing a barong, at occasions, or maybe having a gala that has the Maria Clara or the beauty queens, But now I think among us younger generation, we're trying to find a deeper connection, right? When we open up restaurants, especially the young chefs here, when they open up restaurants, they only not look for the most common recipes that they know their lola and their moms cook. They actually sometimes research, go to the provinces, try to find specific regional cuisines like Ilocano, Pampanga cuisine, even all the way to Mindanao, right? They're trying to find that authenticity. And I think that reflects back really well, not only in the US, but also worldwide, because then we're realizing, and I'm not saying only Filipino Americans are doing that, everybody is trying to connect with our roots now that we have a larger group of people in the diaspora. We want to find this connection to the Philippines that is truly authentic. That is something that even Filipinos in the Philippines will be able to identify with. So I think the best way for us to really contribute to our communities, not only among Filipino Americans as well, but it's also as well as the whole world, like everybody here, is to find authenticity in our heritage, but then express it in the best way we can, right? It could be with a touch of your heritage as folks from the Gulf, with a touch of heritage from Ilocano New Yorker, an Ilocano New Yorker Filipino, a Chicago Manilena, who's also married to a Waray. So, and it's all good.
Definitely.
I think that still is all Filipino at the end of the day.
And I think this is really something that we should hear more of in our Filipino community, because many Filipinos, especially the ones that come from the motherland themselves, only have a sort of fixed idea of what a Filipino could be, or not necessarily a fixed idea, but the idea over there is much different from our idea because we have immersed ourselves in a foreign land, a different culture. So at the end of the day, we should not forget that diversity is really the foundation of our society. We have such a big history with so many peoples and so many things, not to mention that we Filipinos are so multi-talented. And for someone with many talents, I want to ask you, Christine. Christine, how do you own up to, how do you honor the heritage of the Philippines through your talent? What is it that you do in order to make sure that the authenticity and that Filipino flavor rings throughout?
Well, for me, as a writer, especially, it took me a long time to find my voice as a fil-am writer, because I've been writing my whole life, and when I was younger, I was still very much trying to live in a white society, and I wasn't, I didn't have books. There were no shows that showed fil-ams, right? Like, we were represented on TV and in the media, and I was like, no one wants to hear about it. I didn't feel represented. So I didn't realize that I could write characters that look like me, that look like my family. I didn't realize that I could tell stories that were Filipino and were Filipino American. And as I've gotten older, my work has focused more and more on Filipino culture and fil-am culture, and how we as diaspora Filipinos can stay connected to the Philippines. So my poetry, my essays, they're all very much centered from that fil-am viewpoint. And my greater goal really is to not just represent me and my community in my work, but it's to explain to Filipinos around the world what it's like to be a fil-am. Because I think a lot of times we get caught up in being Filipino American, Filipino Australian, Filipino Canadian, and we forget that we're part of this greater global community, that we are all Filipino.
Definitely.
I notice this big rift where Filipinos in the Philippines, oftentimes they don't understand the Filipino American viewpoint. And then Filipino Americans, they forget about the struggles and the challenges back home, and they don't pay attention to the politics there and the news and what's happening. And my goal with my, my work and the community work I do, the writing I do, is not just to show what it's like to live as a Filipino in America, but to hopefully give Filipinos back home and in other countries a greater understanding, and to remind people that, yes, we have different experiences. Yes, we live in different countries, different societies, but at the core, we're all Filipino, and we are one community. And we
are
unite.
one community at the very end. And more than ever, we should always give a piece of our mind and a piece of our essence to our work. And I want to go back to Nina for this one. Nina, you've done a whole bunch of makeup tutorials. You've even done beauty tips, and you've always helped people own up to things like the different shades of their skin, especially morenas for that matter. So how do you stand up and sort of empower others to stand up for themselves? How do you empower your community through your passion?
So one is via my vlogs. Like you said, I do tutorials, and I tell them, like I said, it's about owning up to your own beauty and really claiming your uniqueness and just showing that to the world. And I'm being a voice for the morenas because I don't see a lot of them that's expressing themselves. So for me, I'm kind of that voice for them. So I am trying to represent them.
And represent we must. Jodilly, you as a Filipino model, maybe you don't know it, but like the moment we saw you do that catwalk challenge at the very first episode of your season, all of us were, if not cheering, we were probably bawling because we're like, "Aggarao, Miss Nice is representing us." We were so like amazed, just like the sheer level of talent, and that makes us feel a sense of pride within ourselves as well. What's the best thing that you can offer to other Pinoys? What can you tell them is the best thing you can do in being yourself that also empowers the community?
I think it's just being myself, right? And also because we Filipinos love helping people. Um, me, like Nina, like what she said earlier, I am creating my vlogs because I want to help people. And my motto, if you've watched Asia's Next Top Model, my motto is like I aspire to inspire people and achieve greatness beyond expectation. And that is still my motto until now. And I've been
Mhm.
creating content like what's this videos so that I'll be able to share what I know in modeling because that's where I'm knowledgeable. So I empower not only women or aspiring women who want to be a model, not only them but also Filipina women in general who are kind of scared to go out there or go out of their comfort zone because of the people around them, telling them they can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. I always tell my friends or even who asks me for say advice that Joe, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this because I don't have this and that. And I'm like, yes, you can. You can be whatever you want to be. That's what I always tell them. Because like I always tell them, if I want to be a singer, I can be a singer, which is not gonna happen. It's not like it's ever gonna happen. But like you can be whatever you wanna be. Like it's so easy it's so easy to say, easier said than done, but yeah,
Definitely.
I love inspiring people, and I love inspiring people through my my skills or through my knowledge, because in that case they can relate, especially the struggles I've gone through, and then the milestones, I can actually share it with them. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, just I know that you said that you speak up on behalf of Filipino women, but even just on behalf of Filipino men, I think we can always find a role model in someone that does not necessarily fit our gender our gender in the conventional way. Just because we
Mm,
see you as a model, it doesn't mean that Filipinas can get inspired. But a lot of Filipino guys have been inspired to do to carry the audacity and sometimes also the bravado that you carry into your field, because at the end of the day, it all comes down to being unapologetically ourselves. And that's
mm.
really what empowers the community on the end. So now I want to ask this to Hilarion. What should Filipinos stop doing to bring their community down? Because while we are our greatest ally, we are also our own worst enemy.
Yeah.
So Hilarion, would like your feedback on that.
Okay, so I really do have an experience working in the Philippines. So when I was very young then, and then moving from province from Leyte to Manila, so still there are like discrimination, provincial discrimination from Bisaya to Tagalog. So what I want to, I'm talking from my experience. I'm talking from my real life experience. So for Filipinos, okay, because I think we got this culture which is crab mentality. We really have this culture which is called crab mentality, which is really bad for us. So we are so thankful that we are really talented. We really have everything. We really need to accept it to ourselves. We really need to embrace that we Filipinos are amazing, beautiful. We are very talented because all of these things are coming from insecurities. Okay,
Very
this
true.
yeah, these are coming from our insecurities. But I really want Filipinos to spread love for ourselves. We really have to love ourselves first. We really have to be kind. We really have to appreciate who we are, because when we love ourselves and we are kind to ourselves, when we talk nice to ourselves, when we don't down ourselves, we become really nice to the people around us. And this is really I want to send to people. In my blog, in my Facebook, in my Instagram, in my videos, I always talk about kindness. And I really want to send this to my Filipino community, because this is what's really happening. There's this chismis, there's this, in the office, in your community, outside, between your friends. Really, this is a real thing that is happening, which is really, I really feel sad about it. So we really have to start it from ourselves. We really have to be kind, because when we are beautiful, when we consider ourselves beautiful with our own skin, with our own, to be honest with you, okay, I want to add something, okay? Our skin is beautiful. The way we are is beautiful. And thank God now there is a social media where we can show off ourselves. There are like 7 billion people. With me traveling around the world, makes me appreciate for being Filipino, for having this face, for having this skin. I always tell my followers, please, do not change your skin. You are beautiful the way you are. And I came from this culture also, because my mom usually, asked me to put lotion to be white. But when I moved to Saudi Arabia, when I start traveling to, around the world, I get to see the beauty of Filipino. I appreciate our uniqueness. So, guys, we are beautiful. So let's spread love for ourselves. Then it will surround us. It will spread to others. So that's all I want to say.
Definitely. Kindness from within always resonates to kindness throughout.
Exactly.
I'm just so overwhelmed at the level of insight and the level of strong opinions that we have here. And if I can speak on behalf of y'all, I think everybody can run for Miss Universe. Hilarion, ha? Ilaban kita. Go against you. Thank you for that wonderful question.
You're welcome.
Mariah, I want to also transfer this to you. You've always found yourself in the middle of, let's say, two completely different worlds. Now that you've seen a little bit of what it's like here, and now that you're like over there, I'm pretty sure you could root out some similarities between the different cultures. And at the same time, you can root out similarities in the way that they look at each other. So what should Filipinos over there, or even over here, specifically do to stop dragging each other down?
Oh, well, in the US, I feel like there are Filipinos, because within my family as well, there are a lot of Filipinos here that have kind of lost their Filipino culture. If you can define Filipino culture, like they can't speak Tagalog anymore, which is, Filipinos, they can be what they want. They cannot speak Tagalog. You're still Filipino at the end of the day, so it's just certain things, like they haven't had Filipino food. They don't speak Tagalog. They only speak English. I feel like there are Filipinos here. For example, my mom, she kind of, we're kind of like, oh gosh, no, she doesn't speak Tagalog, or look, his whole family, it's like they've had 3 generations here of, being Filipino, like their grandma, their mom, they came here as an immigrant and stuff. But, some Filipinos here look down on each other like that. They think that you're not true Filipino. And I feel like we should all just kind of understand that we should embrace however we've been raised in different ways, because at the end of the day, like your ethnicity, you are Filipino. And that's something I've also seen in the UAE, how like with me personally, I'm sorry if I'm going far from the question, by the way.
That adds all the more context. It's totally
okay.
fine. But I get where you're saying, in the sense that people only have one idea of cultural preservation without realizing that we have to kind of just understand where each other comes from. Because at the end of the day, like I say, diversity is the foundation of our society, but also monoculture, one idea of culture only, can really eradicate everything that comes in its way. So at the end of the day, we should understand that culture needs to be diverse in itself to be called culture. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and like I've experienced it personally as well, like being fil-am. I've heard there's actually this one story. I don't really know if it's saying too much negatively about Filipinos, but people can't tell that I can speak Tagalog and I completely understand everything they're saying. And they'd say something kind of mean. I'd surprise them, be like, salamat or like, narinig kita or something like that, because they would start speaking badly about you. Sometimes, there are judgmental Filipinos out there. And then there's some that meet me, like when I order something at a restaurant and there's a Filipino working there, I like surprising them, because sometimes they would just be like, oh, so she doesn't know how to speak Tagalog to my mom. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, marunong ako, and then they kind of like, whoa, and they feel kind of embarrassed, so it's kind of like, I feel like we just shouldn't be very judgmental towards each other, and you never know
Definitely.
like, how much
We all
like, a program can
we
know
all
about.
need to be kind to one another at the end of the day. So coming from a place where so many people can judge you, and I'm gonna go to Bettina for this one. Bettina, we're all in the competitive industry here. Sometimes it's cutthroat. Sometimes it's really just. Sometimes we really just end up kind of losing ourselves to things that we're so focused on that we forget who we are, who we are before all of this. So you've achieved so much, Bettina. I wanna ask you, how do you continue to remain as yourself throughout all of this? And this is not necessarily a Filipino question, but I think it's all something that we can learn from at the end of the day.
First of all, thank you. I think for me, I always just go back to people. People are always the one that inspires me the most. I find my motivation through people. And it's just, talking to your family, messaging a cousin in the Philippines. I am very fortunate enough to be able to work with amazing Filipino creatives around me, even just 5 minutes with them. So I just always go back to people and talk to people and try to connect. And I guess for me, because I started my blog 5 years ago and I still have it, you just can't see it, thankfully. But I just go back and I read what I wrote back then, and I just always think, wow, I've come this far. And that cheesy saying, but it's so true. I didn't come this far only to come this far. And, I still want to, still pushing through, supporting each other, taas ng Filipino.
Taas no Filipino, indeed. Authenticity or remaining humble, and authenticity with full pride in what we do. Paul, is there anything that you can add to this as well?
No, it's just whenever I work with different talents within the media, it's really, I'm really proud with Filipinos because they can easily relate. They can just show for whatever they're asked for. So whether be it like a model or a videographer, photographer, or assisting, or just events coordinating events, they're really excellent. So yeah, I agree. Like Filipinos are top notch, and taas noo,
Yeah,
mga Filipinos.
taas no. And
Definitely.
I get where you're coming from. You're coming from the point of always being involved with the people around you.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's
Yeah.
not just the Filipino thing to be around Filipinos and be proud all the time, but it's also very Filipino thing to do, to reach out, to engage with the different people within our sectors, within our neighborhoods, and our own
Yeah.
ecosystems, so that because one way of making our presence felt is, of course, by making it known to other people. And I think we need to do this more often now, as we take more steps into globalization, and all of the cultures will be coming together eventually. So if we're not ready for these things, we're gonna be at a very big disadvantage. Now, I did mention here that Paul was from the Almala gang, but before we get to the Almala gang part, okay, I just want to say hello to all of the people in our audience right now. We have Dal Francisco, Al Alim Yasin, we have Mang Emong Abad from our community, we have Nomi Lim, we have Rian and Leslie, who are also very, 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 very avid this week contributors, all the way from Riyadh. We have Celine Cruz, Gabby Romando is watching, and so many people, thank you all once again for joining this chat. And now, Paul, since we're so unapologetic about our shawarma, alam mo na, we speak Tagalog, but as someone in this group pointed out, we eat the garlic. Please explain to these people outside of Dubai how amazing shawarma is.
Oh my, this brings me way back when I was just like in grade 3. I would walk from Karama to my house, and on the way I would get like a 2 dirham. Back then it was 2 dirhams. Shawarma would be 2 dirhams, and then 1 dirham for a Coke or water. And I don't know, it's different. We tried the shawarma in the Philippines, we tried shawarma in the States. You know, it's really different because when you taste the authentic with perspiration, I think, with the humidity and the garlic sauce, French fries, chili, chicken, chicken or mutton, it depends on what you like. And then you take that crunchy bread that, they put it against the grill, for like a few seconds, and then
Oh my God,
put
yes.
the sauce, wrap it, and then just the dance. Unbox therapy when they open the box. It's just the same
You
with
could,
unwrapping the shawarma. The sound that it makes. Listen, and then you take your
guys,
first bite.
guys, if you all vote for an ASMR video, we'll do an Illustrado ASMR video of Paul and I eating shawarma while social distancing. Drop your votes in the
Yes.
comments down below, ha. So yeah, so I want to thank everybody here for joining us today. I want to thank everybody who's also tuning in the comments right now. We're seeing a lot of pride, we're seeing a lot of support, and along with you guys who have been joining us to speak tonight, it's also the fans that really make us proud of what we do. And for those of you who haven't pieced it together yet, Paul's story of eating shawarma in the middle of the heat, pouring all of that garlic sauce, is just one of the most, I think, one of the most, it's an ugly, beautiful representation of how we Filipinos are so fearless and just integrating with the different parts of the world around us. It's a Filipino thing that if we want to integrate into one culture, we talk, we eat, we share our art, we sing, we dance, so many things. So thank you once again for all of those who've joined. I want to say thank you to Christine, Louella, Mariah. I also want to say thank you to our Dubai kids as well. Paul, Nina, Chantal, Joan, Abu Dhabi represent, and so many things. We have so many things to be grateful for. And of course, thank you so much to Jodilly for gracing us with their presence. I know it's very late right now, but don't worry. We're going to be ending the show pretty soon now. So for those of you who would... I just lost the idea, sorry. We would love to see more from you in whatever you do. But before we close, is there one final message in one sentence? If you can condense one final message into one sentence for the people who are watching, for all the other Filipinos out there, what would it be? And I'd like to start with our fil-ams for this. So, Christine, what would your message be?
Well, like at Fellow Filipino Traits, we're working on a campaign that I think is very important, and I would like to share this message with everyone. And it's that, no matter where you're from, no matter what your background is, if you're mixed, if you're adopted, if you speak Tagalog, if you speak another language, whatever your circumstances are, if you have Filipino blood in your veins, you are Filipino enough. So everybody say it. I am Filipino enough.
I am Filipino enough.
I am
Yes, Filipino enough.
Oh, we were supposed to say it in a group? Okay, sige, wait.
One, two, three.
2, 3.
I am
Filipino enough.
We'll work on that down the line. Don't worry. Louella, I want to know your message for the Filipinos out there.
For me, it is actually standing alongside being I am Filipino enough. It's also, I know I love that everybody's saying let's be proud of ourselves, but we also have to say to each other to support other people. I've had so many experiences where it's fellow Filipinos that's telling me, as a singer and I'm singing Filipino songs, they're saying, "Oh, how come you're singing it with a Filipino accent?" And I'm like, my God, I'm singing a Filipino song. I'm supposed to sing it with an accent, right? And it's other people that is bringing us down, other Filipinos too. So remember, in as much as we are instilling pride in ourselves, we gotta be also proud of what other people do, what other Filipinos do, and we gotta stand by that.
Very, very amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to add as well? I know that you wanted to say something earlier, by the way, but we were all so caught up in the heat of the convo.
That is actually the core of what I was trying to say when Hilarion asked that question. When Hilarion was asked that question, I think I've had experiences online where if somebody is talking about bamboo bikes, right, and I from Africa, let's say, and then they're asking for sources of where they can buy a bamboo bike. And I put in something from the Philippines, and people started asking, "No, I want to know the African one. You're trying to put a spotlight on the African one,
Oh.
And then Filipinos will actually message me to say, "Sige, buti nga sa'yo, nagsalita ka kasi." And I'm like, what? All I'm doing is actually bring up other. I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying there is also an alternative from the Philippines, but I'm surprised that it's actually Filipinos that are telling me, don't speak about
Well,
us.
at the end of the day, we need to be Filipino and proud. And it's a good on you that you're sharing, all of these little things like links and whatever, because at the end of the day, we need to help each other out in even the smallest ways possible. And now we're going on to another fellow singer, Mariah. Any final message to the audience?
I'd say that if you have Pinoy pride for yourself, you should have Pinoy pride for your other Filipinos.
Short and concise. It's a brilliant point to make. Hilarion, your message to all of your fans and our fans as well.
Oh, guys, first, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me here. Well, I just want to end this with, beautiful words about Filipino. Never forget that we are unique. We are mystical. We are magical. We are beautiful. We are powerful. We are strong. We are resilient. So I want my fellow Filipinos to always remember this. And you see how the world reacts to us every time they describe us Filipino are happy people. We are resilient. We are strong. So that manifests. That shows that we are Filipino are amazing. So that's all, guys.
Thank you, Hilarion. Chantal, I want your TCK message for all of those who are watching.
I'd say that there's not one way to be Filipino, and you kind of got to get the good, the bad, the confusing, and just put it all together and roll with it.
Love it. I also want to ask Bettina, any final words, any message, or any advice that you would like to share?
Just as important as it is to stand out, be proud, and represent, it is also just as important to teach people how to treat us, not just for ourselves personally, but for the next Filipino person.
Very much so. Each one, teach one. Joan, Abu Dhabi represent. Don't leave us hanging now.
Being an entrepreneur now and the situations, I'll take a book from Jodilly's advice and say you can be whatever you want to be. I want to see more Filipino business owners and startups. I'm starting a marketing agency to support SMEs, and I really believe we can do more in the business world, especially with the job situations right now. I think we can really do a lot more in terms of being our own bosses, and it's really a more beautiful life, honestly. Like, Ilustrado family.
Yeah, Ilustrado family indeed.
Yeah, I mean, we're all in the family, but just working for your own thing. It's just a beautiful thing, and I think that's the trend now. It's being your own boss, flexi time. So I think everyone can be whatever they want to be. That's it.
To champion people, you must first champion yourself. Paul, you've done so many good things with your craft alone. What's your advice to Filipinos who are watching this right now?
With everything that's been happening, I just want to tell all the Filipinos to stay away from the drama, just putting memes here of negativity, and just focus on the positivity and trying to be the positive, trying to be the good thing about what's happening in the world, and not dwell on the negative, on the drama, and just let your work speak for yourself. Yeah.
Let your work speak for yourself, and don't forget to smile. And speaking of smile, Nina, how can others go smile so brightly like you? What is your secret? What is the one tip that you can give them?
Jollibee.
About smiling. well, well, to the Filipinos out there, our color is beautiful. Continue this conversation. We should not stop this conversation, so we're not going to forget. And that, everybody, not just Filipinos, deserves like equal, fair, and humane treatment no matter what the color of our skin is. And yeah, use our platform, no matter how big or small, to speak out and stand up for what's right. And let's represent our country, our culture very well.
Very well, indeed. Everyone is giving so many Miss Universe answers right now. If you would be so inclined, please. Also, a lot of people in our audience probably have questions for you burning inside right now. So do check the comments, and we'd love to see a little bit more interaction with you, and of course, see more from you down the line. And last but not least, before you fall asleep, Jodilly, what is your final message for all of the other people that are watching today?
I think the audience have had enough of advice from everyone else about being loud and proud as a Filipino. So I'm gonna make it general. So like I said, right? So just keep aspiring and working hard for it. Just keep going no matter what happens. Easier said than done, right? And don't ever forget that when you reach your goal, don't ever forget to help other people and pay it forward.
Pay it forward, indeed. And the motto to Ilustrada magazine, Taas Noo Filipino, the Filipino on top. Because once we're on top of our own things, we can be on top of everything, and we can bring everybody else to the top with us.
Amen.
Thank you all for gracing us with your presences, because your presence is our present. No, your presence is your present. I'm hungry, guys, so I'm losing my brain cells already here. We're gonna be wrapping it up tonight. If you like the show, or if you would love to be featured in our This Week lineup, please do send us a message from wherever you are across the world. We at Ilustrada would love to feature you. This has been the first episode, but not the last, because I think we can see more and more of these coming. So thank you all for watching. My name is Paolo Gabriel Benitez, and on behalf of Team Ilustrada, we all wish you a pleasant, I was going to say a pleasant flight, but I think that doesn't make sense anymore. So let's end the show, everybody. Thank you for watching once again. Paolo here, signing off. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Be safe. Be safe.
Be
God bless
safe.
everyone.
God bless.